My boyfriend claimed his late-night gourmet baking videos were for a new social media page until I saw his assistant. Wearing my customized initial pendant in the background, there is a very specific type of chill that runs down your spine when you are watching your partner's latest social media video, admiring the pristine framing of his gourmet baking, only to spot a piece of your own stolen life dangling in the background. For the last 6 months, my boyfriend, Ethan, spent his late nights at a rented studio kitchen, claiming he was building a high-end culinary content channel to secure our financial future. He always insisted on going alone, telling me that the high-pressure environment of video production and metadata tracking would only stress me out. I believed him, supporting his passion blindly. But last night, while editing the high-definition footage he left open on our shared home desktop, I noticed a subtle glint of gold reflecting against the studio lights. Zooming in on his newly hired marketing assistant, Clara, who was standing just past the mixing bowls, my breath completely caught. Around her neck was a highly unique, custom-engraved initial pendant that had disappeared from my jewelry box 3 weeks ago. It wasn't just a similar design. It bore the exact hand-carved script initials that my late grandmother had commissioned for my 21st birthday. In that single uncompressed digital frame, his entire 6-month narrative of hard work and late-night culinary dedication collapsed into a cold reality of betrayal, calculated theft, and a secret life conducted right in front of a camera lens. My name is Alicia. I am 26 years old, and I work as a digital archiving specialist for a regional museum network. My daily life is defined by examining fine details, verifying the authenticity of historical artifacts, and ensuring that every piece of data matches its documentation. I have always been a person who values quiet stability, structural honesty, and clear boundaries. For 3 years, I believed I shared those exact values with my boyfriend, Ethan. Ethan was an incredibly charismatic, aspiring culinary creator who possessed a natural talent for aesthetic presentation. He could walk into a kitchen, arrange basic ingredients, and transform the process into a visual narrative that instantly captured people's attention online. In late 2025, Ethan decided to pivot from his standard corporate job to pursue digital content creation full-time. He wanted to launch a premium, long-form series dedicated to advanced French pastry and gourmet baking techniques. Because our residential apartment lacked the professional lighting and space required for high-end video production, Ethan used a portion of our shared savings to secure a late-night lease at a commercial cloud kitchen facility downtown. The pricing is incredibly efficient because I'm booking the off-peak hours. Alicia, Ethan explained to me one evening, showing me the digital layout of the studio on his tablet. The commercial kitchen is only available for independent creators from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. It's going to be exhausting, but if I can build a high-retention audience on Facebook and YouTube, the monetization will secure our housing deposit within a year. I supported him completely. I took over the entirety of our domestic expenses, managed the townhouse utility schedules, and made sure he had fresh linens and packed meals before he departed for his grueling nightly recording sessions. Every night at 9:30 p.m., Ethan would pack his high-end camera rigs, load his specialty ingredients into the car, and drive downtown. He always insisted that I stay home to maintain my own demanding museum work schedule. "Production work is incredibly tedious, honey," he would say, kissing my forehead before walking out the door. "It's just hours of white balance calibration, audio testing, and cleaning flour off the counters. I want you to rest so you can stay sharp at the archive." For months, I admired his work ethic. He would return at dawn, exhausted but triumphant, transferring gigabytes of raw video files onto our shared master desktop drive. The channel slowly began to gain traction, accumulating thousands of views from food enthusiasts who praised the pristine, calm, and professional presentation of his artisanal baking. I truly believed we were a team building a legacy, completely unaware that the professional aesthetic was nothing more than a curated curtain hiding a devastating personal betrayal. The first subtle anomaly in our household system didn't appear in a digital folder. It occurred in my personal jewelry box. In May 2026, I went to retrieve a highly specific heirloom for a formal family gathering. It was a solid gold, custom-carved initial pendant featuring my initials, AM, styled in an intricate, non-standard Victorian script. The piece had been custom commissioned by my late grandmother and was completely irreplaceable. I searched my vanity drawers, checked my velvet storage trays, and emptied my travel cases. The pendant was entirely missing, though the matching gold chain remained neatly coiled in its slot. When I questioned Ethan about it later that evening, His expression was a masterclass in calm, supportive concern. "Are you absolutely certain you didn't leave it in your locker at the museum archive, Alicia?" he asked, walking over to help me sift through the drawers. "You work with delicate artifacts all day. Maybe it hooked onto a lab coat. Don't panic, we'll find it." With all the production chaos and moving gear around, things just get displaced sometimes. His reassurance was so grounded that I immediately dismissed my rising anxiety, assuming I had simply misplaced the heirloom during my recent archiving projects. I went back to my routine, focusing entirely on balancing my workflow, while Ethan's late-night baking schedule extended even further into the early hours of the morning. On the evening of June 8th, Ethan left early for the studio, mentioning that his channel's growth allowed him to hire a part-time marketing assistant named Clara to handle his video metadata, timestamp formatting, and audience interaction logs. "She's just a local college student looking for media credits," Ethan noted casually as he tied his apron straps. "She'll be handling the back-end laptop work in the studio office while I focus entirely on the baking presentation. It should speed up our delivery time significantly." At 11:00 p.m., I sat down at our shared home desktop terminal to catalog a set of historical text files for the museum. As I opened the main network drive, I noticed that Ethan's rendering software was currently active, having automatically synced a batch of uncompressed, raw 4K video files from his studio camera cards via our automated cloud backup link. Curious to see his latest culinary creation, I opened the file titled Artisanal Croissant Masterclass Raw Move. The video was beautiful. The lighting was sharp, capturing the steam rising from the golden pastry layers. But as Ethan stepped away from the counter to adjust the oven controls, the autofocus on the high-end cinema camera briefly shifted to the background, illuminating the dim secondary office space just past the kitchen divider. Standing near the laptop station was Clara, her face clearly visible in the sharp definition. As she leaned forward to check the rendering monitor, the studio's overhead spotlight caught the center of her collarbone. Resting against her dark blouse was a distinct, solid gold pendant. My breath hitched. I leaned closer to the desktop screen, applying a digital magnification filter to the uncompressed video frame. The image sharpened instantly. It wasn't a commercial replica. Displayed in perfect high-definition clarity were the exact hand-carved Victorian script initials, AM, that belonged to my missing heirloom. The unique scratches near the upper loop, the exact physical markers I had archived in my own mind, were completely undeniable. She was wearing my late grandmother's stolen gold. Working alongside my boyfriend in a closed studio at midnight, I sat in the absolute silence of the midnight room, the bright glow of the desktop monitor casting sharp shadows against the walls. My initial emotional reaction was a wave of pure, disorienting shock, but my professional training as an archivist immediately took control. In my line of work, an anomaly is not solved by an emotional outburst. It is solved by gathering unassailable, cold documentation. I did not call Ethan. I did not text him or demand an immediate explanation that would allow him to delete evidence or craft a defensive narrative. Instead, I stayed at the desktop for the next 3 hours, systematically analyzing the historical file directories of our shared cloud storage. I discovered a hidden, system-encrypted partition on the network drive that was masked as a temporary cache repository. Utilizing our shared administrative security key, I opened the folder. Inside were hundreds of non-baking media files, completely separate from the public social media content. There were digital travel itineraries, luxury resort bookings for upcoming summer weekends, and synchronized text log exports spanning the last 4 months. The data painted an undeniable picture. Clara was not a newly hired assistant brought in for audience management. She had been with Ethan since the very inception of the Cloud Kitchen project. The entire late-night baking schedule had been carefully selected not for financial efficiency, but because it provided a flawless, recurring 6-hour window every single night to conduct a secret life completely shielded from my presence. The gold pendant had been a deliberate gift from Ethan, a piece of my personal heritage stolen from my home and handed to his secret partner under the assumption that I would never look closely enough at a background file to claim it. At 4 a.m., I downloaded the uncompressed 4K video frame, the magnified image of the stolen pendant, and the complete directory of hidden travel receipts onto a secure, encrypted flash drive. I packed my grandmother's remaining jewelry pieces, placed my laptop in my bag, and systematically unlinked my personal credit cards and checking profiles from our shared household utility portal. I didn't leave a single note on the counter. I drove directly to a quiet residential suite near the museum district that I kept for peak archival seasons, entering my new sanctuary just as the sun began to break over the city skyline. At 7:30 a.m., Ethan's standard routine concluded, and he returned to our primary townhouse. Finding the space completely empty of my belongings, and noticing the missing administrative tokens on our joint accounts. He began dialing my phone continuously. I allowed the device to ring out, remaining completely focused on my museum duties until my designated lunch break. At precisely 12:30 p.m., I initiated a secure single-use video link to his device. When his face appeared on the screen, he was sitting in our living room, his expression a mixture of performative panic and deep confusion. "Alicia, where on earth are you?" he exclaimed, his voice rising in an artificial pitch of concern. "Your clothes are gone, the accounts are unlinked, and you didn't leave a single message. I've been out of my mind with worry after a 12-hour production shift. Ethan, I need you to listen to me with absolute clarity, and I need you to look at the screen I am currently sharing," I said, my voice completely devoid of emotional fluctuation, maintaining a strict, professional cadence. I activated the screen share protocol, displaying the high-definition, magnified 4K frame from his croissant masterclass video. The image focused squarely on Clara's neck. The Victorian script initials, AM, rendering an undeniable, razor-sharp detail alongside the time-stamped metadata from the hidden repository files. The performative panic on Ethan's face instantly dissolved, replaced by a frozen, hollow expression of absolute exposure. His mouth opened slightly, but no words emerged. The smooth, charismatic presentation style he used to navigate conflicts had completely failed him when confronted with an unalterable digital artifact. "The custom heirloom around Clara's neck belongs to my grandmother," I stated calmly. "The hidden travel data in your cache folder documents 4 months of unauthorized asset diversion from our shared accounts. I have already filed a formal property report with the local municipal authority for the unauthorized removal of registered personal property from our residence. Alicia, please." "You're misinterpreting the context of that footage," Ethan stammered, his hands visibly shaking as he tried to construct a defense on the fly. "Clara found that pendant in the studio parking lot. She didn't know it was yours. I was going to bring it home this afternoon. The travel logs were just business expenses for a future culinary documentary project. We can sit down and audit the files together. Data does not require a creative interpretation, Ethan," I replied. "The file structure is absolute, the tracking is verified, and our relationship is permanently concluded." I terminated the digital connection before he could utter another syllable of denial. In the days following the confrontation, the reality of the separation began to ripple through our social and familial networks. Ethan, realizing that he could not manipulate me directly, attempted to launch a defensive PR campaign among our mutual friends and family members to protect his rising social media reputation. He reached out to my extended family, claiming that I had suffered an emotional boundary crisis due to test anxiety and work fatigue, and that I was destroying a 4-year relationship over a background shadow in a cooking tutorial. His mother sent me a lengthy, highly critical message late Thursday evening, attempting to shift the moral accountability of the situation onto my analytical approach. "Alicia, handling a private relationship dispute through digital tracking and police property reports is incredibly cold and unfeeling," she wrote. "Ethan is an artist. He lives in a chaotic creative world. Even if he exercised poor judgment with his assistant, exposing his personal files and threatening his career over an item of jewelry is completely vindictive. You should have met him at the apartment to discuss your insecurities like a mature partner." I read her message with the same clinical detachment I applied to damaged parchment at the museum. The family was attempting to rewrite the sequence of events to protect Ethan's public image. In their narrative, his systematic deception, his emotional betrayal, and the theft of an irreplaceable family heirloom were minimized as poor creative judgment, while my choice to rely on verifiable data and legal boundaries was labeled cold and vindictive. I refused to entertain the distortion. I did not breach his privacy. I viewed a file that he intentionally uploaded to a shared desktop network that I funded and maintained. I did not sabotage his career. His own high-definition production equipment was the tool that captured his misconduct. I simply allowed the truth to exist in its rawest form, refusing to let emotional manipulation cloud the unyielding clarity of the facts. It has been 3 weeks since the uncompressed video frame exposed the hidden reality of my life, and the system has fully stabilized into a state of absolute justice, personal renewal, and pristine success. 2 days ago, accompanied by a local municipal property officer and a copy of my grandmother's original asset appraisal certificate, I officially reclaimed my gold initial pendant. Clara surrendered the item without a single word of protest, terrified of the legal implications of maintaining possession of a documented heirloom. The vintage piece is now resting securely in a secure safety deposit box at my primary banking institution, its historical integrity fully preserved. Ethan's content creation channel has faced a complete operational reset. Unable to sustain the premium studio rental fees without my primary financial backing, and with his administrative credibility entirely shattered among his initial local sponsors, his late-night baking project has completely shut down. The shared townhouse lease has been legally terminated, and he has been forced to relocate back to his family's residence. His reputation within the regional media community deeply compromised by his own choices. This morning, I sat in the sunlit gallery of the museum archive, holding a cup of tea while reviewing a new collection of historical manuscripts. My mind was filled with a profound sense of lightness, clarity, and unshakable strength. If I had reacted with typical dramatic confrontations, or if I had allowed myself to be swayed by his charming reassurances, I would still be trapped in a cycle of doubt, supporting a partner who used my trust to fund a double life. Deception always relies on the hope that the person being deceived will remain too polite, too distracted, or too emotional to see the patterns. But when you meet betrayal with calm documentation, absolute boundaries, and unyielding logic, the truth executes its own perfect justice. My heritage has been recovered, my personal space is completely secure, and the next chapter of my life is being written with absolute honesty, independence, and brilliant clarity.